issues. All right, sorry. So the team has been making relationships work, issues, and prospects. And the program started on Wednesday with Pastor Theodore Dixon, who is our able host. And he started by teaching us about overcoming the I syndrome. And on Thursday, we also heard from Dr. Chioma Mendo, who taught us about no trust, no love, the importance of trust in relationships. And yesterday, we heard from a couple, a powerful couple, a dynamic duo, Dr. and Dr. Mrs. Olare, who taught us about communication 101, saying what you want, not what you don't want to say. And we learned about the barriers to communication, learned about the techniques, yes and instead of yes but. For those who were present, it was really eye-opening, and I know we learned a lot. And we also had a session, and a second session yesterday by Professor Michael Akwa, who taught us about money matters. And that was also another powerful, very powerful session. He taught us about financial issues and how we handle finances and money matters in relationships as well as in marriage. And we thank him so much. That was beautiful. And today we're going to be looking at another beautiful session, a very important one as well. And today's topic is compatibility and incompatibility as regards health, with a focus on health. And we're also going to be looking at compatibility 789. I don't know what that means, but I know we'll find out what it means by the end of the session. And we have two speakers who are going to be taking each topic for us. For the one with the focus on health, we're going to be looking at genotype and rhesus factor issues. And we have a very capable person who is well experienced in that area, who's going to be taking this topic for us. Dr. Elizabeth Grillo is going to be handling that topic for us. And then the second topic will be handled by Pastor Dixon, who is our host. And don't tune out, because there will be another session as well by 4 to 6. So jumping right into it, I'm going to be introducing the first speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Grillo. Give me 1 second. And just to confirm, I hope everyone can hear me, just because network issue.
We're here and we can hear you clearly.
You can hear me, okay.
So go on.
Right, thank you for confirming that. All right, so Dr. Elizabeth Grillo is a native of Ilishan Remo, Ogun State. She is an obstetrician gynecologist with passion towards the improvement of women's health and by inference, child health. She's a lover of the youth with a specific passion in care and guidance of the youth physically, mentally, spiritually, and socially. She is married to Pastor Elkanah Oluwaseun Grillo, and the union is blessed with 2 children. Forgive me if I murder these names, but it's Erire Oyin Adewa and Ebamiyo Oromi Iyanju, I think. Okay. All right, and I'm sure they are very beautiful children as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Elizabeth Oluwakemi Grillo to handle the first topic. Dr. Grillo, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I would like to get permission to share my screen, if that's possible.
Yes, Mike, can go ahead, miss.
Okay. Yeah, well, okay. Yes, I think I will start by saying that the names were really murdered.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, the names that Erirere Onyadewa and Ebamiyo or Romiyoju. So those
Thank
are the names. And so thank you very much. I think we can start with a word of prayer. If Angel is here, I think I will permit her to pray for us. There's somebody's name that is Angel. I'll permit her to pray for us.
Yes, it's a male, ma.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Almighty God of heaven, thank you for the opportunity to be here once again. Thank you because you have blessed us with this opportunity to learn more and grow. We want you to bless the speaker, lead her, and use her to help us in this learning process. Father Lord, forgive our sins and help us every day to be closer to you. May your name be glorified in everything we are going to do this afternoon. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you very much. So today we'll be talking about compatibility and incompatibility, but looking at the health perspective. Marriage is actually an institution, and it sure entails two individuals who are expected or needed to be compatible both spiritually, mentally, physically, socially. Otherwise, this union would be miserable when you have issues of compatibility. All that we've been talking about, money, trust, and all that. When compatibility is not in place, this union is sure going to be very miserable. But actually, we're going to be talking about compatibility in terms of health, and we'll be looking at sickle cell disease, and that's looking at the genotype and the resultant effect of incompatibility when it comes to genotype, and also look at resource factor. The unfortunate thing about this too is that, as we all know, that one of the benefits of marriage is to bear fruit, following the injunction of God saying that we should go ahead and be fruitful and multiply. But these two incompatibility issues we're talking about today actually bear consequence on these fruits of marriage. Now let's just take a brief for a bit of understanding as regards what we are going to be talking about. If you look at this picture, we need to look at the fact that we inherit a lot of things from our parents, and the mode of inheritance is dependent on whatever the egg or the fertilized egg speaks from either the male and female phenotype, that's the XY and XX, to just try to explain what we mean by inheritance. You realize that, please, can we still hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Yes, we are here, ma.
Yeah. So looking at this, you realize the male sex gene is XY, while the female sex gene is XX. Now, when a baby is to be formed, the baby picks, and that's how the genetic makeup of the male and the female is all through. Every gene that we have is in pairs. Every gene we have is in pairs. So this is just indicate looking at the sex gene, but every gene we have is in pairs. And some of the genes are dominant and recessive. Some we have some they are both recessive, some are, so it depends on. So when a baby is about to be formed, a baby will pick one from the mother and one from the father to make it complete. So taking, for instance, on this A side, if the baby picks an X from the mother and from the father and an X from the mother, it becomes XX, which connotes the female. If the baby picks an X from the father and another X from the mother, it becomes XX, which is also a female. If it actually picks the Y and then the X from the mother, it becomes XY. So that's exactly the way our genes, the makeup is when a baby is about to be made, the cells pick up different parts of the genes of the mother. That sometimes some people say, you are a mixture of your daddy and your mommy. Yes, because there are some parts that you have picked from your dad, there's a part that are picked from your mom. You always would pick from both of them. Whichever is more dominant is one you exhibit in terms of appearance or in terms of inward makeup or your organs and all that. Now, what is sickle cell disease? It's actually a blood problem. I'll try to be as lay as possible, as in using lay terms. We call it a hematological disorder, which is a blood problem, and results from inheritance of abnormal genes from the mother or for the father. If the mother is a sickle cell trait carrier. Now, who are the disease carriers? Usually, we know that genotype is either AA, AS, SS. We also have a variant of C. That means you can have AC, you can have SC, you can have AC and SC. So you have a variant of C, A, and S. Now, so the carriers are usually those that have AS or AC. Those are the carriers because they are carrying the sickle cell trait, which is the C and the S. So if a baby decides to pick, if we have a man and a woman, AS or AC, getting married, and the baby decides to pick the S and the C from both of them, then the baby will likely have sickle cell disease. And about the 5% of the world population is actually affected, but it is most predominant within the African continent, unfortunately for us. However, the effect of the disease is felt because these cells that have picked the SC or the SS, they usually are not as healthy as the A cells, or the AA or the AS cells. Now, what happens in them is that they look like normal red cells, but unfortunately, when you have periods of adversity in terms of maybe there's an extra need for oxygen or there's an extra need for fluid and all that, you realize that these cells cannot withstand those stressors. And because of that, they tend to be prone to breakdown or prone to being deformed. And they form what we call sickled cells. And these sickled cells do not have the same malleability like the other normal cells. And also these sickle cells can also plug arteries. And all these effects are the ones you see when they start presenting with crisis. Now, how is it inherited? As I said earlier, we have the carriers, who are the AS or the AC. And then we have the normal genotype. Well, not normal, but I would say it's normal in terms of sickle cell disease, which is the AA genotype. Now, if you have a couple, one AS and one AS, another AS, entering into marriage, you realize that by the time they are getting together, then me say, okay, let's see, this aunt's husband, which is AS, and the aunt herself, which is AA. By the time they are getting together, if they have a 1 in 4 chance of having an AS child, sorry, 1 in 2 chance of having an AS child, you have A and A, that's 1. You have A and A, that's another 2. You have A and S, you have A and S. So 50% chance of having an AS child. And these chances is at every pregnancy. So it's not like now when you have an AA child now, the next child must be AS. No, it's at every conception that you have. However, if you have both of them being AS, you realize that they can have A combining with A, giving you AA. You can have A combining with S, giving you AS. You can have S combining with S, giving you SS. So they can have AA twice, or have 1 AS, or have 1 SS. So there's a 1 in 4 chance of having a sickle cell disease child. However, as I said, this 1 in 4 chance is at every conception. So that's why you can have some families, they'll be lucky, even with the fact that they have AS. they would not have any sickle cell child, even if they have 4 or 5 children. But some, they will have the whole 4 or the whole 5, all sickle cell, children with sickle cell disease. Now, if you have somebody with SS and then marry somebody with AA, if you pick them the way we have been picking, you realize that all their children will be AS. So that tells us that the best combination is that you have the SS marrying the AA or the AA marrying the AS. And that will be able to give us, although we would have sickle cell carriers, but we will also have very healthy individuals. Now, looking at this inheritance, that's to tell us how we can actually prevent this disease. And you realize that we need to make an increase in awareness amongst people in the community, just like what we are doing right now. People should know their genotype. And I love the fact that big churches are beginning to get aware. And before marriage, they ask the couple to actually go ahead and bring a genotype test. Now, I even feel that time is actually a bit too late, because a lot of people now begin to put sentiment into it when both of them are both AS, and we know that there's a chance of them having a sickle cell child, and they will start telling you that God will help them, they will not have. But when the troubles begin to come, it can actually wreck the marriage, because so much effort in terms of mental stress, in terms of monetary, economic, finances of the home, will be put into the care of that single child, if it's just one, even if it's just 1 out of 4. And although we know that the medical world is getting better, we still cannot guarantee that they cannot still die from their sickle cell crisis. So it's better to do this screening even way before the relationship starts off, so that you don't get too deep into a relationship and get heartbroken, and then you now drop it because one is AS and another one is AS. Now, those that have gone into it, either by ignorance or maybe they've been given false tests, and then, or knowing fully well what they are into, and then go ahead. We also have the way out, which is what we call, some of them will go through what we call in vitro fertilization, where we can actually select the type of fertilized eggs we want to develop. So they will test those eggs and see which one has the genotype of AS or AA or whatever, and then implant the ones that either have AA or AS, and discard the ones that have SS. That's something that is done, that is possible medically. But of course, why go through all that stress if this can be avoided way much earlier? The last option is not something that we do as a church, but of course, we must all be aware, because it's still possible in the medical world, so that it not be as if we are shielding you from information. People also do screening even while pregnant, and once they realize that the child is SS, they go ahead and abort the pregnancy, which is also very wrong. So the best of it all is that we create an awareness. Everyone should know their genotype and avoid entry into relationships that will produce an SS child. Now, for those that already have, this is just like an addendum, for those that already have relatives or that are sickle cell disease patients, we know that they are prone to a lot of crises. And these crises are usually worse off in the rainy season, when you get extremes of weather, whether it's too hot or whether it's too cold, or when they are even under mental stress, or when they in conditions when they are they have recurrent bouts of malaria, or maybe when they are even infected or having a form of infection. This crisis tends to supervene at this time. So usually we encourage to reduce the number of crises, that these patients take high-free diet, a healthy diet, actually very rich in fruits and vegetables. Then they should avoid the exposure to extremes of weather. When the weather is hot, they should dress lightly. When the weather is cold, they should kit up. So we give folic acid supplementation to help them build up their excessive broken red blood cells intermittently. And of course, intermittently, we give pain medication for their bone pain crisis. Then usually they are being advised to take some vaccinations, which help them to prevent some common infections. And these vaccinations are expected to be taken as at when due. And then they take antibiotics anytime infections supervene. There's also the issue of the bone marrow transplant, which is becoming a new thing in medical practice, in which they can actually help through the bone marrow to convert because the bone marrow is the source of red cells. So when you do a bone marrow transplant, it's like converting the cells from SS, the red cells from SS to AA, and they live longer lives with following bone marrow transplant. In fact, some of them will have remission following this. But the take home is that know your genotype. Avoid being paired with somebody that is a carrier if you are a carrier. But if you are not a carrier, that means if your genotype is AA, then you can actually get married to anyone at all without having the fear of having to have a sickle cell child. Then even though we said that we should go for genotype testing, please be very careful about the labs you go. We should go to reputable labs, because most times in most of these labs, they have this, it's unfortunate that some of them mix up the C traits with the A traits. So you find someone that said, all my life, I've always known to be AA. And then suddenly he or she does genotype somewhere else, and they tell him or her that she's AC. And that is way not good enough. So always go to a reputable lab and be sure of whatever results you are getting. The C trait is as bad, although not as bad as the S trait. It is as bad as the S trait. But the point is that it is usually mixed up with the A trait. So we really need to be careful. I had a colleague in school, well, in our final year in med school, that she realized that her genotype was actually SC. All her life, she had believed she was AS. In fact, that day she felt very depressed and very sad. So let's go to reputable labs to check our genotype and know what exactly it is. Now, in terms of resource factor, the red cells also that we have are usually what gives us, they have antigens, as in they have some molecules on them that are like immunogenic. What we mean by immunogenic is that if it enters into somebody else's body as a foreign body, the person can react to it. So it's either the ABO antigens or the resource antigens. You have both. So the ABO is the one that gives you the blood group. Either your blood group is A, is B, AB, or it is O. So for those that their blood groups are A, all they have the A antigen on their red cells. For those that their blood groups are B, they have the B antigen on their red cells. For those that their blood groups are A and B, they have the AB. They have the A and B red cells and antigens on their red cells. For those that are O, they have neither the A or the B antigens on their red cells. So they don't have any antigen. Those that are O, they don't have any antigens on their red cells at all. And the importance of these antigens is that when you now have somebody with a blood group of O, he or she does not have any antigen, and you give blood of A, or you give blood of B, or you give blood of AB, that means you are introducing what the person does not have into the person's system. When you do that, the person sees it as a foreign body, and it sees that blood as a foreign body, and begin to create a reaction against that antigen. And by creating a reaction against that antigen, it decides to start breaking that foreign blood in its own system. And the moment it has been sensitized, those antibodies remain within the person's system. So anytime, it's like a protective mechanism that the body has built up, or God has put in us, so that you don't have any foreign body harming you. So your body creates a defense system against anything that is foreign. Now, for the resource factor, it's about the same thing. So you hear that people say, my blood group is A positive. It means that you have the A antigen and you have the rhesus antigen. The positive or the negative is talking about the rhesus factor. So if you have the positive, that means you have the rhesus antigen on your red cell. So if you are A positive, you have both the A antigen and the rhesus antigen on your blood cell. If you are A negative, you have the A antigen, but you don't have the rhesus antigen. If you are O positive, you have the O, and you don't have any A or B antigen, but you have the rhesus antigen on your red blood cell. If you are negative, you don't have the A or B antigen, that's O negative, but you now have you also don't have the rhesus antigen on your system, on your red blood cell. Now, as I said, I've tried to explain the antigen antibody reaction. What the body produces against those antigens is what we call antibodies. So usually about 85% of individuals are positive. That's, they have the rhesus factor antigen on their body, but a little, 15% of them are negative. Now, this is being negative, being rhesus negative is not a problem for males, but rather more of a problem for females. Well, I will not say, well, in terms of fruits, as in terms of childbearing, it's not a problem for males, but it's a problem for females. And although we see it as a problem, but it can actually be dealt with, or it can actually be, it has a solution if picked early. Now, if you look at this pattern of inheritance too, earlier I was talking about some genes being dominant and some being recessive. If you just look at this pattern on inheritance, for you to be rhesus positive, you must have a capital D and a small d, or a capital D and a capital D. So if, for instance, now, if you have a father that is rhesus negative, so if you have to be negative, you must be small d and small d. So if you have a father that is rhesus negative and a mother that is rhesus negative, that they have d, small d, small d, small d, small d, and then the babies, they have most likely all their babies would all be rhesus negative. If you have a father that is rhesus positive and a mother that is rhesus negative, there's a 50-50 chance of having a rhesus positive and a rhesus negative baby. Now, if you have a mother or a father, this can either be father or mother on both sides. You understand? So if you have a father or mother that is rhesus positive and the mother is rhesus negative, if the father is double capital D, that's dominant on both sides, not this one small d and one capital D, all their babies are going to be rhesus positive because each of them will have a capital D and a small d, and rhesus factor is dominant. So once you have a capital D, irrespective of whatever you have, you would have you'll be rhesus positive. So now, as I said earlier, it is actually a problem with the females and not really a problem with the males. Now, what happens when a female that is rhesus negative is pregnant, and if she actually happened to have married a rhesus, if she happened to have married a rhesus negative man, then it's not likely we'll have a problem. That means what we will have is what is here. However, if the man is rhesus positive, then there might be a problem because that baby she's carrying might be rhesus positive. Now, if the baby is rhesus positive, that's where the issue lies. But if the baby is rhesus negative, then both of them are free, both the mother and the baby. Now, if the woman gets pregnant and her first child is rhesus positive, you know that there's a communication between the baby and the mother, which is the placenta. So usually, sometimes, towards the tail end of pregnancy, there is some subtle mixture between the maternal blood and the fetal blood. Even though we know there's supposed to be a barrier between the blood of the baby and the blood of the mother. But there's always some little leaks in this barrier that can cause a mixture between the maternal blood and the fetal blood. Also during delivery, while delivering the baby and while delivering the placenta, Also, they must also, and especially if the woman is giving a cut during delivery, or maybe she had a cesarean section, there's a possibility that due to the breach of the mother's blood vessels, that the baby's blood can mix with the mother's blood. Now, what happens with that mixture is the fact that if the baby is rhesus positive, the rhesus positive blood has found its way into the blood of the mother, into the bloodstream of the mother. And what happens? The antigens have found their way into the maternal bloodstream. So the mother develops a defense against these antigens, and she begins to produce antibodies. Now, this baby has been born. That's the first child, the rhesus positive child, has been born and has been spared because the antibodies came in after the baby became produced, after the baby had left. So that first baby is usually spared. However, if the woman now gets pregnant a second time, and unfortunately the baby that is produced is also rhesus positive, the antibodies, that I said earlier, when you produce antibodies, they are always there, waiting for a second attack. They're like soldiers, waiting for a second attack. So these antibodies that have been produced earlier from the previous baby's mixture will now begin to cross the placenta and attack this new baby. It's because fine, with the blood does not mix, but this usually antibodies cross because they are also like antibodies cross, nutrients cross, so that the baby can feed and also protect the baby against infections. So once these antibodies, they will just cross like every other normal antibody within the system. Not they differentiate themselves that they are going to be harmful to the baby. And once they cross and they get to the baby, they begin to attack the baby's red cells. And once they begin to attack the baby's red cells, they begin to break it down. And once they begin to break it down, the baby becomes anemic inside pregnancy. And before you know it, the heart of the baby fails, and the baby can even die, depending on how severe or how much of antibodies the mother has produced against the baby. So that's why in rhesus incompatibility, the first baby that is born is usually spared, but the subsequent babies are the ones that usually have issues. And they are even the effect on the second is much less than the third. So with subsequent pregnancies, the effect of these antibodies is usually more because the woman just keeps getting more sensitized and produces more antibodies at every contact with, and these antibodies are more stable at every contact with this baby. So it can cause jaundice. Sometimes the babies, even the first that we say is spared, can actually come down with natal jaundice. You can have babies, I said they have heart failure, and the baby gets all swollen. That's what we call hydrocephalus, and eventually dies. Now, as I said earlier, these consequences worsen with subsequent pregnancies and cannot be reversed. Now, how do we prevent this? This is much easier to handle because there are preventive measures that can be taken. The first thing first is that you must know your blood group. You must know that, yes, I am negative or I am positive, either A negative, B negative, AB negative, or O negative. Now, with that in mind, you also would know that you should not get any blood that is not compatible with yours. That means if you are negative, you must always get a negative blood. Now, that will not suffice to say that you cannot get, you must get exactly your type of blood. No, what I mean by you can get other blood is that we have what we call, as I said earlier, those with A have A antigens. That means they can actually get blood from anybody that has A antigen and that has no antigen. That means just don't give me something extra. So then they won't be able to get blood from people that have B antigen at all. So they won't be able to get blood from people that are B positive or AB. Sorry, B or AB. But they can get from O because O does not have any antigen. And they can get from A like themselves. Now those with B, they can get from AB, sorry, they can get from B and they can also get from O. Those with AB, since they have both A and B antigen, they can get from anybody because since they have A, if they get from A, you just add it to what they have already. If they get from B, it's adding to what they have already. If they get from O does not have any antigen to give anybody, so you can give anybody. So that's why you always talk about universal. But because they don't have antigen, they can only take blood from O, which is them. They can only take blood from O, which is them. They can't take blood from all others. For AB, they have both antigens, so they can take blood from A, B, O, and even AB themselves. Now, even if you know that, you must also, if you are A negative, you can only take blood from somebody that is negative, that's O negative or A negative. If you are B negative, that means you don't have the resource factor, so you must not take blood that has the resource factor. But if you are positive, you can take both the negative blood and the positive blood. So we must avoid any blood transfusion with non-compatible blood, so as to avoid, because once you get that sensitization, this cannot be reversed. It can't be reversed. The body just keeps producing more of these immunoglobulin, more of these antibodies over and over and over again. Now, we also have an injection we call ROGAM, which is rhesus immunoglobulin. This injection is important after delivery or after every miscarriage or abortion following 12 weeks, as in the age of the pregnancy is 12 weeks and above. Below 12 weeks, we believe that the immunity, there's no antigen production in the baby below 12 weeks. But after this, all the antigens that the baby exhibits are already formed. So the woman must have this injection. I'll tell you how this injection works. Also, in some climes, because it's quite expensive. So in developed world, they actually encourage giving these women even during pregnancy, before you even have a birth, the delivery of the baby. So they usually would give 2 doses in the very late 2nd trimester and very late 3rd trimester. Now, what does this injection do exactly? This injection is like an antibody itself. So what it does is that it goes into the maternal bloodstream and tries to mop up all the antigen, the rhesus antigen that the baby might have transferred to the mother, and mops it up so that the mother does not see those antigens. You know, as I said, that when the baby's blood mixes, the mother's system identifies the baby's antigen and begins to produce antibodies. So this injection is actually the antibody itself. So because you are giving that an injection, it goes in there, does its work, and after a while, it goes off. The body does not begin to start producing the antibody because there's nothing sensitizing it to produce the antibodies. You're the one that deposited the antibodies there, and to only stay there for a while. After doing his work, within 2-3 days, it goes off, and then the body breaks it down, and just like you take your normal drug. So it doesn't create a problem thereafter. And then it solves the problem of being sensitized. Now, the issue of surrogacy. For women that are already sensitized and they have rhesus positive husbands, so that means that they actually cannot carry a child to term or to viability because of the risk of the child being attacked by the antibodies within their system. So for such women, what the medical world can do for them is the fact that it can actually help them to, through in vitro fertilization, the fertilized egg is carried by somebody else on their behalf, as in somebody else carries their pregnancy on their behalf. And the person, most likely a rhesus positive woman, person delivers the baby and then hands over the baby to them. The egg is theirs, the sperm is their husband's. Then for those that are into it, the pregnancy is ongoing, and we found out that yes, this woman has been sensitized, and we don't want to lose this pregnancy. We do serial monitoring of the baby in utero, and then transfuse the babies as when due, as expected, until we can no longer keep them inside, and then we have to deliver them, and they survive thereafter. The picture here is the picture of the hydrous fetalis I was talking about. You can see the baby all swollen and looking all puffy. This is like what we call edema. It's like sulficanous water, meaning because of the failure, heart failure, baby had in utero. Most of these babies, when they're like this, they usually would not survive. So the take home from this presentation today is that it's best we know our blood group and our genotype. And then we also know who we can actually be compatible with and have a successful marriage in terms of our fruits. That is, we'll have children that will not create problems for us, or we'll have pregnancies that will not create problems for us. The issue of resource incompatibility is not really a problem per se. That means somebody that is resource negative can try to marry a resource positive man, or a resource positive man marry a resource negative woman, or a resource negative man marry a resource positive woman, because there is a solution. And of course, you have to be aware of that solution, which is the ROGAM, which you must ask anytime, ask doctors once you get pregnant and after delivery that you must be given. The earliest time, the most effective time is within 3 days after delivery. Although we can still give as much as 1 month, but it's most effective when this injection is given within 3 days. So knowing our genotype, knowing our blood group, and knowing who we can get married to that will not have issues is the best. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Ma. That was a very, very informative presentation. Please write down your questions. I know we have questions, so please pen them down because we have to go straight into the next presentation.